I'm Dan Kivits from the SciAS Knowledge Center. We're based in Svalbard. And I'm here today representing the POLARIN project, that is, which I will talk to you about later more. In advance, I want to apologize for the amount of blue in this presentation. So if you don't like the color blue, I'm very sorry. And I try to combat this by wearing a green shirt today. So first of all, I want to have an acknowledgement of land, as is common here in Australia. And I want to acknowledge and pay our respects to everyone that the traditional owners of this land upon which we gather today. So I first thought, what would be nice to introduce this with? I think for myself also partially it was necessary to see where the polar data landscape is at and where we come from, where we're going. So I think major parts of this are the past IPY and the one we're moving to. I think it's a good place to start. And the fourth IPY is already a really long time ago, in the year 2007, 2008. And from that, it was stated that there were from the 1380 IPY data sets that were made in light of IPY. Only 450 were openly available, and that is basically where SciAS was made from. I see this is a bit overlapping, but basically around 2008, the idea was dropped that there would be a need for an integrated observing system in Svalbard, with the goal of integrating, harmonizing, and making accessible all relevant Earth observation data from Svalbard across institutions and nations. So it's also across boundaries in that sense, into a central portal and enable system-level understanding of the Arctic environment that way. So that was already quite a while ago, and now it's 2025. So where are we now? But before that, there were some other projects that also came into play during this time. Some of which, most of which were EU funded in a sense. Of course, there were many more projects, but these were kind of the relevant ones for POLARIN also. And most of them focused on getting the data available in a fair and interoperable way. Most notably, there was the Interact project, who kind of, in a similar fashion to POLARIN, also focused on Earth system science data around the polar regions. Many iterations of this project, of course, but this Interact focused mainly on the terrestrial side of the data. So that's where POLARIN comes in. So to put it into context, POLARIN is a EU Horizon funded project with that aims to provide access to 65 infrastructures around both poles, of which 38 were research stations, 18 observatories, vessels. It includes some core and ice repositories, and of course data repositories, as we are all familiar with. And it aims to tackle this issue that's actually still been here since the past IPY, where polar research is highly collaborative, as we're here today together, but its output is still mostly fragmented into data silos. So all of these data centers are being developed in solitude of each other. And this project aims to bridge part of those efforts together. It builds on previous efforts. In the way that it strives to be pan-polar in this sense, and also multidisciplinary. So similar to last presentation, they try to focus on multi-domain, the multi-domain aspect, and this is the same in POLARIN. And it also tries to focus on this metadata federation approach. So for instance, the past presentation focused on having a centralized approach, where we cache and store all data centrally and try to manage it from there. But I think POLARIN strives to have more of a metadata federated approach, where you keep the data at its authoritative source and link to the data from there with the metadata. So the challenge here is basically to connect all of these existing infrastructures and not duplicate efforts. So it's in a way it tries to build on previous achievements. And then quickly, here's the POLARIN consortium. You can see that there's so many different institutes and universities that are connected to this, and that's also what makes this very very complex and hard to work with, in my opinion. But first, the vision. The vision is to provide efficient and customized RI services, and more specifically to address the scientific challenges of the polar regions, of climate change and that kind of thing. To provide access can be in the virtual sense, so to go to a data platform and have the data openly available, but also remote access where you can send you're getting funding to send the person working at the station into the field and collect data for you, or you can go to the station yourself in the form of transnational access, which was also in Interact. And the objectives of this project is to integrate and combine the Arctic and Antarctic RI, to improve the online services, data access and interoperability, and then to ensure that the next generations also are trained to exploit and the leading edge RIs. So there's also a training component here. So today I'm talking about this data hub, and what is the data hub and what isn't it, basically. And I just want to note in theory here, because this is by design and maybe not the state at which is it at now. So what is it not? It's not just another portal. It aims to be. And it's not just caching data, but it's aiming to mostly focus on this federated metadata approach, to be pan-polar in a sense. So that makes it different from just another portal, where this is the first time, as far as I know, that we try to have an interoperable portal that's pan-polar. To be multidisciplinary and also to have all of it openly available in a way of, according to the open science principle. So the data, but also the source code. It's not trying to replace existing systems, but just harvesting from existing systems. So we don't need to host any data and do difficult resource-intensive operations there. And it's not aiming to be archiving, but mostly preserving the data. So it's dynamic in that sense. So this is a quick overview of the system architecture that I quickly made, and it's not the prettiest thing, but something had to be done. So we can see that it involves mostly these metadata federation nodes. And for now, it is because we are finding out that it's hard to work with an only metadata federated approach. We need some centralized component in there also. So we're now using kind of a mixed hybrid approach where we're also using an aired-up server in which we cache basically the data that can't be that's not adhering to those standards that we need for it to be that we need the metadata to be federated along the architecture. So for now, this is kind of where we're at, and then that all of the metadata is collected into the GeoNetwork instance. It's being standardized there, sent to an API that enriches the metadata with some additional information that we need for the project, which is information on which RIs the data came from, and basically which sphere the data is aiming to address. So the cryosphere, the geosphere, which Earth System Science sphere. So in a way, this is kind of a modular approach, and we can move to other systems as we feel need, but this is the first kind of draft kind of setup of this. And basically, the POLARIN metadata catalog, as you see it there on the screen, is mostly based on our experience as SIOS, or from SIOS, the data management system. We try to basically take the data that was already in there and basically tackle the low-hanging fruit with the data that we are familiar with already. So that's mostly the component that we have built. So what does the Data Hub look like now? It provides some tools to do some interactive analysis with the data that's on there. It provides a landing page where you can view the KPIs and view a map with all of the RIs in there. Some of the tools that, for instance, Alicia talked about yesterday, where there's developments being done on a language learning model, user prompt, where you can kind of interact with the data with a user input. And these are pre-computed outputs, as Alicia told you, but we're trying to move towards, of course, an open setup where if more data comes in, and we can start working with that. And then also it provides, the idea is that you can work with data on the fly. So you can do geospatial analysis, but also plot some time series and whatnot. And also this, I put some QR codes of the different components actually in the architecture that I mentioned earlier. So feel free to scan those later. Also, I have a poster in the back where these are also included, so you can just scan them there too. So basically the challenges that we're facing now, as I already mentioned, is that there's too little talk about the use level of the data and too much talk about the discovery level. And yeah, you're of course all familiar with the FAIR principles. But in a way, I see that now, this is not working so well, but I wanted to showcase that basically we're having most of the data that we have now in the portal, at least, and in many portals is mostly covering the F and the A, and not really the I and the R, whereas we need to move towards a fully FAIR approach, right? That's what we all are here for. Yeah, so a reality check. I also was at International Data Week last week, and there were some interesting things that stood by me. One of the quotes from the opening convener, Tony Haymet, the Australian chief scientist, was that only one of the out of 100 data sets is reused and actually reused and correctly cited. And that's kind of a crazy figure, I think, which is something that we need to address, for instance, with portals like these. Yeah, and also that basically Zenodo had 3 years ago the option opened to put data sets or input data sets also on Zenodo. And since then, almost 500,000 data sets have been put in there. But that's, of course, a very fast approach. People mainly use it to perform some sort of data dump where they would just need a DOI quickly to have a check mark checked in their project. And from this, we can see that, open science FAIR doesn't really mean, it doesn't cover all of the aspects of open science and vice versa. So the data on there is mostly not interoperable, and that's an issue. So looking forward, I think we want to keep prioritizing this federated metadata approach, but we need to start working together better with the POLARIN RIs to make that happen. And also make sure that these people at the principal investigators at these RIs are not getting research fatigue, in a sense, where they are contacted time and time again from all these projects and wanting different standards from them. So we need to start with a core group, I think, that I already included quite well, and kind of showcase the power of this approach, and then move from there, because that's what I think previous approaches have also focused on, and that's worked quite well for others, I think. And the individual components of it are already there. Like we have good quality metadata, well-described data, for instance, in the SAIS data portal, but also in others. And we have examples of data portals that can provide services on top of these well-described metadata. So we do have the components there, but we just need to implement them and work with all of our partners together to get there. So we need to start implementing a way to monitor this virtual access to the data, both in quantity and quality of the data, because that's a check mark we need to have for the project, kind of. We need to ramp up the pan-polar dialogue, where we work together also with the Antarctic component of this project more. I feel like the Arctic component is very well represented. Most of the stations included in this virtual access funding are the Interact stations, and part of those. But there's only two Antarctic stations that are funded that we need to include for this virtual access. So there you can already see that there's some disparity between the poles, whereas this tries to connect both. So that's an interesting thing. And then, I feel like with SAIS, we are developing the SDMS and the observation facility catalog that we are running, where you can go and find all of the resources on Svalbard, at least. If you want to find some infrastructures there and you wonder where should I go for my research, you can go in there. We're trying to develop these in a way that they are the leading systems for at least Svalbard for the next IPY. And I think we can take from these lessons also and implement them also in the POLARIN project. And then to move basically from a very entangled approach where there's so many different cables and you don't know what to do, to more of an integrated network, of course. Which is very abstract, of course, but you get the idea. So I'm open to any questions. Please contact the person at SciSKC responsible for the coordination here, which is Zoe, and then Antonio at ETT. Thank you.
Nice. Hi, thanks for that. Any questions? I'm just going to grab my other glasses that I left up here so I can see if there are any questions. Here we go. Mark's got one.
Thank you. Interesting work. Just a question about your federated metadata. Recognizing that you want to focus more on the usage metadata, I can hear Oystein Godoy jumping up and down about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. How does that federated metadata approach relate to the polar data search?
To the polar issues, you said?
The polar data search, are you familiar with that?
Yeah, so polar, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
In a way, I think it's being linked to often also by Oystein, but it's I feel like Polar is more of a discovery platform where we try to focus on mostly also that usage and providing users or researchers with a place to go to, also to interact with the data. So in a way, I think I'm not sure if the same, like what channels go into Polar and which ones are integrated into the POLARIN Data Hub right now. I think there has to be overlap because POLARIN also includes a lot of SDMS data sets.
Can we discover POLARIN data through Polar Data Search?
That's a good question. I think for now, no, because it doesn't really go the other way around. It's more trying to harvest or aiming to harvest other repositories and then exposing those, but it's not really being fed into other systems yet as we are still developing the architecture. So.
Okay,
that's the goal in the future, to make it more sustainable. Yeah.